Hey guys, how's everybody doing? It's Billy here coming at you today with the 50 record challenge. I saw Frank over at channel 33 RPM. I guess his video on, I can't remember if it was Friday night or Sunday. Sometimes he has Friday night videos, most of the time he has Sunday videos. But Frank had posted this 50 record or 50 album challenge that I thought was kind of cool. I'm sure it's been around for a while. You know, people have so many different things pop up as far as cool ideas and things, just to keep things fresh. But basically, if you haven't heard of it, or if you're not familiar, essentially, if you're like me, I think a lot of us are probably the same way in with our listening habits. Especially if you have a large collection, you probably tend to go back when you do have time to listen. You tend to fall back and fall into that habit of listening to the same things over and over and over again. At least I know I do, and Frank admitted he does the same whenever he has a chance to sit down and listen to records. You find yourself pulling the same ones by the same artists or whatever. And obviously, you can see behind me, I have a wall of music. Just the LPs that you can see here. The CDs are over there. There's a couple thousand CDs, a couple thousand 8 tracks, and tons of cassettes that I don't even have organized yet. So, yeah, it's kind of a musical hoarder's paradise. But it can become overwhelming at times, and it gets kind of stagnant. And to keep things fresh, what Frank had mentioned in his video is challenge yourself to go through your collection and pull out 50 albums of things that you haven't listened to in a while. He said like 2 years or maybe even ever. So I kind of set that as kind of the guidelines for myself. I went through, as you can see, I have 48 bins here that are pretty well full. So I think with his, he just went through and picked with really no rhyme or reason. But what I did is I thought, with 48 bins, if I picked one record from each bin, that would kind of mix things up, kind of alphabetically, sort of, but different genres as well. And so I did that. I picked one record from each bin, so that left me with 48. And then I totally forgot about all my hard rock and heavy metal stuff, which is over here in different bins. I have 12 different bins over there. So I thought, you know what? And I listen to my hard rock and heavy metal stuff a lot more than I do a lot of this stuff. Don't get me wrong, I still listen to a lot of this stuff, but I find myself listening to a lot of my country stuff and a lot of my hard rock and heavy metal stuff more than anything else. But I do enjoy all of it. So I went through and I pulled one from each of those. So that actually, instead of the 50 album challenge, this is a 50 album challenge and then some. So there's a few more than 50. I don't know. I think I ended up with 59 or 60. 48 and 12 is 60, basic math. But I'm pretty sure I'm at 60. So we're going to call it 60, the 60 album challenge. So without further ado, let's jump right in. I'm going to show you guys everything that I pulled, and I've set them all aside and put them in a bin. So what I'm going to try and do is just start listening to these. Like I said, some of these are things that I haven't listened to in years. Maybe it's some artists that I listen to other things in their catalog, or it could be new stuff that I just got that I want to listen to, or it could be stuff that I've just never listened to. Maybe I picked it up in a collection. I've had it in my collection forever. Maybe it came highly recommended and I picked it up at a show or a shop or something and just never got around to spinning it. So with that being said, let's jump right in and start with the Allman Brothers Band. This is one that you guys will remember from one of my most recent videos from my trip in Florida. Self-titled debut from the Allman Brothers Band. Great album. Obviously, we're all familiar with the hits off of here, but this is, like I said, a new one. I haven't had a chance to spin it. I want to get familiar with a lot of the stuff off there. And I'm not going to go into any great detail on a lot of these. A lot of these I'm just going to show. But like I say, they're coming down in alphabetical order. At least they should. April Wine, First Glance, Love me some April Wine. I have several things out of their catalog, and this is one that I have not spun in a long time. Let's see what else we have here. Okay, and some of these are actually going to be, you heard me talk about records, like classic records that everybody like must listen to or must hear albums. This is one of those that honestly I've never listened to. So the Beatles, Rubber Soul. I'm gonna give this one a listen and familiarize myself with that one as well. Yeah, I know it's a shock to a lot of you guys that I probably haven't heard that album, but I haven't. Blackfoot, live, little highway song, Train. These guys, as far as good chugging Southern rock, I haven't listened to that one in a long time either. I listened to, Marauder and Tomcattin and Strikes, but I want to hear that one again. Those guys live were great. Jackson Browne, The Pretender. This is one of those artists that I have a lot of stuff in his catalog, and I am familiar with like Running on Empty. But I wanted to get more familiar with some of the earlier stuff, and I actually almost pulled the debut, but I reached out to a friend who is a huge Jackson Browne fan, and I'm like, hey, must listen or must hear Jackson Browne albums. And of course, he came back with Running on Empty. I'm like, I'm already familiar. This was the next one. So, of course, I'm familiar with whatever hits might be on here, but I haven't ever spun this album. Another classic from the 80s, from my childhood. Phil Collins, No Jacket Required. Great stuff. Some Best of Cream. I was going to pull, again, one of their studio albums, but I thought, Cream's a band that I don't listen to enough, and really should. Need to get some more Cream there. I just said I need to get some more Cream. I can't wait till Diggy or somebody, Farley, comments on that. All right, so Dylan, Blonde on Blonde. Enough said. Eagles, The Long Run. This, to a lot of people, is considered, their last album, but probably their finest album, top to back, front to back, top to bottom, all around. Eagles, Long Run. Some Foghat, their debut. Again, another band that I really enjoy, just don't listen to enough. David Gilmour's solo effort after the split from Pink Floyd. A friend of mine actually was playing this in a live broadcast on an 8-track group that I'm in, and it reminded me I need to listen to this one again. Something I don't listen to enough and should. Buddy Holly, 20 Golden Hits. Look, I really do like a lot of that stuff, Buddy Holly and Richie Valens and Little Richard, and a lot of that type stuff I really do get into and enjoy. Here's something that might surprise some of you guys, but Janet Jackson, Rhythm Nation. This is one that I've never listened to. I mean, of course I listened to it when I was a kid, but since it's been in my collection, I haven't spun it. Elton John, Madman Across the Water. Can't go wrong with anything from Elton John, especially from 70 to 75, 76. Just everything he put out from that time period is a masterpiece. Another one of those classic albums or must-hear albums that I've never heard. Well, that's going to change. King Crimson. Some Gord. Gordon Lightfoot, Gord's Gold. Get that. Gord's Glare right there. Yeah, there we go. Gord's Gold. Gotta love some Gordon Lightfoot. Of course, we're all familiar with Sundown and The Wreck of the Edmund Fitzgerald and any of those hits, but there's so much more depth to an artist like Gordon Lightfoot, and I need to get more of it. Curtis. Well, Curtis Mayfield. This is one I picked up maybe a year ago and have not spun. Everybody left. When I posted this, the original video that I picked this up, there were a ton of comments about how great this was. A lot of people offering to buy it or trade it. So I'm gonna familiarize myself with this. I know Brother Steve will love this. Moxie. Gotta love some Moxie. I was torn between the first one or the second one. I went with the first one. Like I said, I don't listen to it enough. Another one that I am not familiar with, but I wanted to see is New England, and this, by all accounts, is their most popular album. So we will see. This is Explorer Suite. If you guys know anything about New England, let me know. I may hate that, but I'm sure it'd be fine. Pink Floyd, Animals. Find myself when I do listen to Floyd, it's Wish You Were Here, Dark Side of the Moon, The Wall, things like that. So, gonna revisit Animals. Some Ramones. Got to get a little punk there. Rocket to Russia. I like the Ramones on a certain level. I just don't listen to them enough. So there we go. Emmett Rhodes. I've been meaning to listen to this album for quite some time. Brian at Shamrock and Records has shown this a handful of times, and a couple other guys. But gonna give that a spin. Another one of those must-hear records. I know Jeff Kempen says I really need to listen to it. And there were a couple other guys that said that I need to hear this, and this is one that I put on my classic albums that I've never listened to, never heard. Classic albums I've never heard list. So there you go. Rolling Stones, Let It Bleed. Another one that I need to get, and I was actually looking through my Stones collection. I don't have it. Is Exile on Main Street. So I need to pick that one up because that's kind of in those. Andrew from Tales from the Crate mentioned there's like 4 albums in a certain time period from like Beggar's Banquet and Let It Bleed, Sticky Fingers, and Exile. And Exile's the only one of those 4 that I don't have, so I need to pick that one up. Rush, Moving Pictures. This is one that, just you want to talk about a masterpiece of an album, but one that I don't listen to nearly enough. This is one I picked up in a collection a couple summers ago, and Brother Steve, Harmless Rebel, had mentioned, he pointed this one out. I believe it's pronounced Skagerrak? Skagerrak. A Slice of Heaven. So I did a quick needle drop on this, and from what I could tell, I think it was maybe it was the first. I don't know if it was side 1 or side 2, but it was either Answer to Your Prayers or Rock This City. And I really loved what I heard. I really enjoyed what I was hearing, except for it seemed a little bit synth heavy. I'm hoping the whole album isn't synth heavy, but maybe Steve can fill me in. Either way, I think I'm going to dig it. Just picked this one up. The Boss Greatest Hits. Some Steppenwolf Greatest Hits. I tried not to pick too many hits compilations because I wanted to familiarize myself with things that weren't hits. But for somebody like Steppenwolf with so many great songs, I don't spin these guys enough. And this is a nice German pressing there. I think Frank showed this one in his video. Tesla, the great radio controversy. The Great Radio Controversy. This is one that is such a great album, and it was between. I was kind of torn between this one and what's the other one, Mechanical Resonance, but I decided to go with this one. Still would love to find 5-man acoustic jam, but it's impossible to find. Here's one that's another one of Mom's influences. Ike and Tina Turner, River Deep Mountain High. according to everyone, that this is kind of their pinnacle of their career right here. So can't wait to familiarize myself with that one. And of course, everybody knows Van Halen, but this album, A Different Kind of Truth, is one that doesn't get enough attention and definitely doesn't get enough play around here. Got to send a shout out to my buddy Mitch Wood, for hooking me up with this one. He found it in a record store in Kansas City and ended up picking it up for me, and I took care of it. He shipped it over to me, but great find, and happy to finally have been able to add that to the collection, I believe last year sometime. Thank you for that, Mitch. Moving right along, The Who, Live at Leeds. I almost went with Quadrophenia, but it's such a long album. It's 4 discs. I want to get through these and maybe pick out a handful more, but this is one that is just Who at their best. Johnny Winter and live. Some great stuff on here. Like I say, I'm familiar with Johnny and Edgar and their great stuff, but I'm not familiar with this particular album. So I thought it has a great track list on it, so I can't wait to hear that. This is another one that David Michael said this is where I should really start with Neil. Well, I really didn't. I went ahead and dove in head first into some of his studio albums, and I've been very pleasantly surprised that I've liked a lot more than I've not liked. So I'm gonna give this is a decade a hits comp from Neil Young. Throw that on and see what I want. I still want to find Old Ways. I want to get his country kind of country album. Speaking of country albums, moving on to country, Clint Black, Put Yourself in My Shoes, one that I don't listen to nearly enough, and what a great album. This is his follow-up to his debut, Killin' Time. Johnny and June. When I do listen to Johnny, it's typically just Johnny, and it's a greatest hits comp, or it's live at Folsom Prison or something like that. Maybe his first album. But this is such a great album that I haven't spun in ages. David Allan Coe, Crazy Daddy, an impossible record to find. This was actually the last record I needed to complete my David Allan Coe catalog. Working on the custom box set, like you see up here. Everybody asks what those are up there. Well, the purple one is a Hank Williams Jr. Bocephus box, and the red one is Sammy Hagar. And I'm working on a David Allan Coe right now. But this is the last album that I needed to finish my David Allan Coe catalog, and haven't spun it. It's from 1989 or 90, so can't wait to hear that. The Coe stuff from the mid 80s through is completely different. It's not nearly as good as the Coe stuff from the 70s and early 80s, but I still enjoy it. Charlie Daniels Band, Fire on the Mountain. You guys saw that when I was in Florida, I picked up a different Charlie Daniels Band, or just Charlie Daniels album. I believe it was his second album on the Kama Sutra label, and this is actually the early Fire on the Mountain Kama Sutra pressing right before they switched over to Epic. They actually have a ton of Epic pressings. This was a lot harder to find, but what a great album this is. That Charlie Daniels album that I picked up in Florida was killer. I mean, absolutely killer. And I think Andre Linda Legg actually picked it up as well. Let's hear your thoughts on that, Andre. Moving right along because we're already at 19 minutes. Steve Earle, The Hard Way. When I listen to Steve, I listen to a lot of Steve, but this is one that totally gets ignored, and I'm gonna give that one a lot more attention here. Picked this one up last summer in Nashville. Randy Houser, the Call Me Cadillac. Great singer. Great album. Of course, I'm familiar with the album. I listened to it on digital format, but I haven't heard it in a couple years. Alan Jackson, Here in the Real World. I mean, I listen to a ton of country, like I said, but this is one that I love that album, and I know it front to back, but I haven't listened to it in a while, so I'm going to listen to it. Aaron Lewis has a new album coming out next week. This is The Road. This is his first, his debut country solo project, I guess you could say. This is super hard to find, and I don't listen to it enough. I listen to Sinner just almost just all the time, and then his new one I've been streaming. They've got like four previews or samples that you can get on iTunes and Apple Music, and I can't wait for that album to come out. I've been listening to that a lot, so I want to go back and listen to The Road. Willie Nelson, Shotgun Willie. John Prine, Sweet Revenge. Listen to his new album. Well, newer album. It's been out about a year and a half. Just a phenomenal record. And I go back and listen to his debut every now and then, but I pulled this one, Sweet Revenge. The debut by Johnny Rodriguez, introducing, long before Rodriguez stole that goat. Billy Joe Shaver. Actually, this is just Shaver, unshaven. So it's Billy Joe and Eddie right before he passed in a concert that was recorded at Old Smith's Bar. What a great lineup. These guys were great, and I don't listen to that one nearly enough. Of course, I listen to a ton of Billy Joe, but I just don't listen to that. You probably saw Brother Steve, Harmless Rebel, show this in one of his most recent videos. He actually picked it up when he was with me, or I was with him at a record store in Marietta when I stopped through on my way from Florida. But this is George Strait's Twang. I listen to George a ton, but I do not. That one doesn't get enough time on the turntable. Haven't listened to that one since I got it. Tanya Tucker. This is just self-titled. Tons and tons and tons of great stuff on here. I love Tanya. Want to spin that one a little bit more. I usually find myself spinning her hits. You know, she's got a bunch of different hits compilations. Little Rusty Weir, Don't It Make You Want to Dance? Can't wait to really get familiar with this one. One of the songs on here is called I Heard You've Been Laying My Old Lady. Can't wait. Oh, hang on. Got a little bit of avalanche here. There we go. All right. Moving right along, we got Dwight Yoakam. So this will be the last of the country here. Hillbilly Deluxe. I was torn between that one and Buenas Noches from a Lonely Room. And then we're jumping into the metal. Like I said, that completes the 48. Last 12 right here. AC/DC, High Voltage. This is one that it doesn't get a lot of love, you know, because when I do decide to listen to AC/DC, it's usually, you know, Back in Black, Razor's Edge, Dirty Deeds, something like that. So I'm going to listen to a little High Voltage. Some Aerosmith, Get Your Wings. Sabbath, this is one that I picked up last summer in Nashville. Headless Cross. Cult, Electric, one that is a great album. I just don't listen to enough. It's going to change. That's going to change. And Priest, Painkiller. Just picked this one up in Florida. Creatures of the Night. One of those, probably one of the heaviest Kiss albums, and it's just one that I don't listen to nearly enough. You know, I find myself when I am listening to Kiss, I've got a handful of go-tos, like I'm sure you know several of you guys have as well. If you listen to Kiss and you like Kiss, here's another one, Crazy Nights. It's one that I never have given a whole lot of love, but a ton of you guys do. So I'm gonna actually give it a real shot. Spend some time with it, see if it kind of grows on me. Same thing with this. Megadeth, So Far So Good So What. Great album. I just don't listen. It's not my go-to Megadeth album. I listen to a lot of Megadeth, but I don't listen to this one enough. I caught a lot of grief and a lot of flack over saying that this was not a good Ozzy album in my Vinyl Tag 2019. Killer cover, okay album. I'm going to spend more time with it and see if my my thoughts have changed. Like I said, I haven't really listened to it in a couple years or more, so that's going to change. I'm going to spend some time with The Ultimate Sin. Pantera, you guys know I'm a huge Pantera fan. Far Beyond Driven. Once again, when I listen to Pantera, I'm usually pulling Cowboys from Hell or Vulgar Display of Power. Those are my go-to Pantera albums. This one here is so heavy, so good. I just don't listen to it enough, but we're going to put that in the 50 album challenge and then some. And then last but not least, Slayer. This is South of Heaven. I always forget. And again, I listen to Slayer just not nearly as much as I used to. I used to really listen to them a lot, but as I get older, it's just a little bit harder to listen to. But this is one that I always did enjoy, and I'm ready to go back and revisit that again. Like I said, I'll listen to Rain and Blood because it's 26, 27 minutes. It's a real easy listen, but I want to revisit that one again. So there you guys have it. That's the 50 album challenge and then some. So I challenge you guys to do something like this if you want to. Feel free to post it. Show us what you're going to be listening to. I think it's a great idea. I want to thank Frank over at Channel 33 RPM for posting his video. Whether he came up with it or not, probably not, because there's guys have been around. The VC's been around forever, and these things come full circle, So, guys, as always, thank you for tuning in. I will have another update before Record Store Day. Last Record Store Day, I wasn't really that excited for it. And you saw that I took the money that I would have spent on Record Store Day and built a custom 8-track storage shelf, and spent some money on some 8-tracks and things like that. Well, this Record Store Day has a few more things that I'm a little bit more excited about. Plus, I've got a new store that I want to go to and support. So if you've got a store you want to support and you're excited for Record Store Day, go out and support them. So guys, as always, thanks for tuning in. Hope you're doing well. Take care. Peace.